What's chirping, crickets? Welcome to Kim Takes On. I'm Kim. Hi. And this is my co-producer, co-host, co-aider, and abetter, whatever else you can think of to call him, Terrence the Wonder Duck. Terrence says hello and hopes that you all had a wonderful weekend. Happy Father's Day, a little late to all the dads out there or people who act as dads for people. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. So here we are, and what are we going to talk about today? Well, today I'm going to talk about characters. Now, what I mean by that is when you have a character that is established in another genre, or not really a genre, but when you have a character that's, well known in one form of media and then it goes to another form of media is what we're looking at today. And what we're looking at are usually the moments where this works out well, some of the moments where it works out so-so, and some moments where you go, I'm sorry, did you even look at the origin material? Now, the thing is, what makes a character enduring? Well, there's different reasons a character is enduring. Sometimes it's the source material, a classic piece of literature, or sometimes a character becomes enduring because of the way it's presented in other media, like movies and things like that. I feel like a good example of that is James Bond, the character of James Bond. Because if you go back and look at the books written by Ian Fleming, the way that he describes the physical appearance of James Bond is not what we get in the movies at all, ever, that I can think of. Because the way that he describes Bond in the books is that basically the description was, I remember at some point, I don't remember if it was in the books or if it was actually him saying this, that he felt like Bond looked a lot like the entertainer Hoagie Carmichael. He looked like a average guy. Because when you think about it, now taking the movies out of it and taking all the other stuff out of it, if you're just going by reading a book about someone who is a secret agent or a spy, however you want to word it. If someone is a secret agent, they have to be able to blend in with everybody. They have to be able to be somebody that people don't remember seeing, And I don't mean that because they've got like super hiding skills or something. I mean, they have to be able to be the kind of person who could walk into an office or an embassy or a wherever and seem like they belong there, that they have the attitude of, well, I'm supposed to be here. Look at my lab coat or look at my, 3-piece suit or whatever. It's very obvious I'm supposed to be here. Now, the thing is, when you're a person that looks like every other kind of person, your average person, male individual of a certain age or whatever, that works really well in a book. The problem is when people go to the movies, unless they want to see some gritty documentary or something like that, if you're going to go see a spy movie, you're not going to want to see a guy who looks like your neighbor or whatever. And you're not going to want because I'm sorry, let's face it, guys, let's be honest with ourselves. And Terrence and I are in total agreement about this. Let's go for some transparency here. Spies are real. The concept that are actually people out there from our government, somebody else's government, most other people's government, who go out and try and get secrets and do all kinds of spy stuff. They do exist. It's a real job. Are they out there saving the world every day from mad scientists who want to turn all the gold in the world into pudding? Probably not. Are they running around with wristwatches that have laser beams shooting out of them and cars that you can flip up the headlights and all of a sudden they've got like machine guns? No, I don't think so. Are they betting women with names like Pussy Galore? Probably not, because anybody who would name their kid Pussy Galore, nope. Paging Dr. Freud, your thesis is here. I mean, wow. But when you go to the movies, you're not going to want to sit there and watch somebody being tailed for 2 hours because that's boring. You want to see explosions and wristwatches that shoot lasers and, women named Plenty O'Toole and things like that, because it's a movie and you want to go have fun and escape the world for a little while and stuff like that. So that's why when James Bond came to the big screen, we don't get a guy who looks like every other guy, just a guy. You get somebody like Sean Connery or Roger Moore or Timothy Dalton or Pierce Brosnan or Daniel Craig. And let's be really honest, and let's, if a guy that looked like Pierce Brosnan walks into your office, you're going to remember that guy because he looks like that. It's just one of those things. It's like, first, I'm sorry, I would remember if somebody said, hey, have you seen anybody different around here? Yeah, I'd be like, yeah, I saw this guy. He came in around 3:00, looked totally like a male model, hot AF, Woman needs, don't judge. But that's what I mean. Because of the character being one way in the book that it doesn't work for the movies, things get changed. Now, sometimes when you have someone who's played a character, it's really interesting because someone who could play the character just a very few times could wind up being the template for how everybody sees that character. And I feel like a good example of that is Count Dracula. Count Dracula is written in the book Dracula by Bram Stoker. He's described in the book. He doesn't really describe as looking much like Bela Lugosi, but Bela Lugosi was if you asked your average person or duck on the street, what does the character of Count Dracula look like? Your average person or duck is probably going to give you a description that sounds a lot, if not exactly, like Bela Lugosi, someone tall and aristocratic, widow's peak, European accent, I want to suck your blood kind of thing. Some people will bring up fangs, which is actually, I am going to be that person, and Terrence is also going to be that duck, and just bring it up, that actually in the original film Dracula with Bela Lugosi, he does not have fangs. I don't think the fangs actually came into things in a big way until Christopher Lee's portrayal of Dracula, which pitched the European accent, but still had a lot of the same trappings, the bearing, the elegant clothing, and the unmistakable aura of menace. Because Christopher Lee was just awesome. And I am not going to take a no for anybody who says otherwise. I'm sorry, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're wrong. Not that Bela wasn't amazing. Bela was amazing. And Bela should have known how to play Dracula well. He'd played him on stage for quite a bit before the film came out. The thing that I think is so interesting, and the fact that he was the first, and I wonder if that's why everybody associates the look of Count Dracula with Bela's portrayal, because you can see that look in a whole bunch of other people's portrayals. It won't be exactly the same. There's bits and pieces taken from his performance, and you see them in other performances. Some of them have almost everything. Some of them have one or two things. In every kind of performance you can think of, from other people who've played Dracula in films, to a character like Count Von Count from Sesame Street, to Count Blah from Greg the Bunny. If you've never seen Greg the Bunny, boy, howdy, did you miss out on a show. That show was hilarious. Way too hip for the room. To a character like Count Duckula, represent David Jason, you're awesome. And all other kinds of characters, other performance, other iterations. But people have in their heads, they have this idea of what Dracula looks like. And it really all kind of started with Bela's performance, to the point that something that TC and I were very lucky to do. Our local theater, when we had one time they were running the original Dracula, and right after that they ran the Mexican version of Dracula. When Universal filmed Dracula with Bela Lugosi, at night they had the people who were part of the Mexican cast come in, and they used the same sets, not the same actors, and they filmed the Mexican version of Dracula. And we got to see both of them back to back, which was very, very cool. And even the gentleman that played Dracula in that, his performance wasn't completely, a cut and paste of Bela's. He had his own style. And they could also get away with more. Not a lot more. I mean, there wasn't like, blood and guts and, breasticles or anything like that getting shown. But, they didn't seem to be as tied down by morality clauses and crap like that. I just think that that's interesting. I think also that sometimes the really funny thing is why sometimes a character has to be changed. You'll take a character and have them done one way by one studio, and then somebody else has their take on the character. And the original studio's like, can't do it that way. Got to do something different. And sometimes that works out really, really well. And sometimes not so much. The one time that it went well, in my opinion, we're back to Universal again. Frankenstein. One of my favorite horror movies, one of your favorite horror movies, one of Terrence's favorite horror movies. Love it. Absolutely fantastic movie. Karloff is amazing. The look of the Frankenstein monster is what we're talking about here, obviously. Because Universal owns that look. The flat top, the bolts in the neck, the whole schmear. They own all of that. So when across the pond at Hammer Studios, they decided, well, we want to make our own version of Frankenstein. So Universal was like, yeah, go ahead, but you can't use anything. You can't do any makeup that's going to make your monster look like our monster. So you got to come up with something different. And Hammer went, okay. And we wound up with The Curse of Frankenstein, which is terrifying. It is also the first portrayal of Peter Cushing as Dr. Frankenstein, which would continue for several films. I also absolutely adore Peter Cushing. He's one of the most amazing actors ever. And yes, I will fight you on that. And Christopher Lee as the monster. And Hammer was like, okay, you don't want our monster to look like your monster? We're going to get to work. And what they came up with is frigging horrifying. If you have never seen The Curse of Frankenstein, which is, if you are watching this show, I can't picture that. But if you haven't seen it for a while, go check it out again. Because Karloff's, it's really weird. And I'm not saying this to flex and be like, oh, I was such a brave little kid. I was never afraid of the Frankenstein monster. I was always like, I feel bad for him. He needs friends. He needs somebody to be nice. If someone was nice to him, he wouldn't be angry all the time and scared and stuff. He just needs someone to be his friend who also knows how to swim. All right, that smacky handy. That was not a nice thing to say, especially if you've seen the original film. And if you have, you got it. And you're all going, can't believe she said that. But I did. Even when I was a little kid, I was like, he doesn't mean to do bad things. He's just got nobody to show him what's good and what's bad. You know, that's how I felt. That's also how I still feel about Karloff's version. With Lee's version, there are scenes where I do feel pity for his creature because the doctor treats him like crap. He's very nasty to him. You know, I'm like, dude, the guy just came back from the dead. You could be a little bit nicer. Damn. But his monster fell out the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down and then fell face first into the dirt because he's a mess. His face is all screwed up. It's just a big mass of scars. One of his eyes is all cloudy and dead, and that's before he gets shot. And he's just horrifying. The scene where the creature rips away the bandages that have covered his face. I'm sorry, I was like, ugh. You know, I mean, and I know that's shallow. I mean, I know that's being shallow and being like, oh my gosh, you know, but it was that pathos that I felt for the creature wasn't there. I don't know why. I don't know where it went, but to me, that's an example of, okay, you tell us we can't do something. We're going to do our own thing and we're going to make it really cool. And they did. An example of where it didn't work so well, King Kong. And I know the next part of this is going to peeve off some of my fellow G fans out there. I'm sorry. The original RKO film, King Kong, is an amazing film. Absolutely wonderful film. Beautifully shot. Amazing special effects. And I cried my eyes out at the end of it. Surprise. When Toho Studios in Japan decided that they wanted to make King Kong versus Godzilla, other than the fact that there was a bit of a height discrepancy at first, because seriously, I'm not kidding. If you put RKO's Kong against Toho's Godzilla at the sizes they were supposed to be at, the movie would have been about 5 seconds long because it would have been, I'm King Kong, splat. Rest of the movie would have been Godzilla going, ew, what did I step on? Ew, yuck. And like picking up buildings to scrape off his foot and clean between his toes. But they gave Kong an upgrade, made him taller so he could conceivably fight Godzilla and not have it look like ridiculous. The thing was, RKO said, okay, fine. You know, we'll let you use Kong, but he can't look like the way he looked in our film. Which I'm kind of like, then what's the friggin' point? But Toho went, all right. And they wound up doing their own version of Kong. Yeah. Bless their hearts. I I mean, the biggest difference, obviously, the biggest difference was that the original Kong, that was all stop motion stuff and a couple of close ups of, the head and stuff like that. When Toho had Kong and Godzilla have a scrap, it was guys in a suit, except for one scene where they're puppets and you can totally tell they're puppets. And I'm not scolding anybody. I'm just bringing up, it's a kind of longish shot, but you can totally tell there's two people with puppets going. Blah, 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 blah. Oh boy. I mean, it's not that Kong doesn't look like a giant gorilla, because he does. Kinda. Well, no, that's not nice. He looks like King Kong, as in he looks like he's a big, giant gorilla. However, the RKO film, Kong had more expressive features, for one thing, which led to the tragedy of the character, I felt, because they could express more in his face and stuff like that. Eye movements, mouth movements, all that. We didn't get that with Toho's Kong. We also didn't get usually in that film, we also didn't get a version of Kong that walked like a gorilla. Because normally, if you've watched enough nature documentaries, a gorilla they will walk on their hind legs, if they feel like they need to. Usually that's aggressive, and, they will beat on their chest and stuff like that. And yes, that is an aggressive thing. That's being like, get away from me, I'm going to kick your butt. But when they're not doing that, they don't just walk around, they walk on their knuckles, and they didn't do that. And I realize I'm being nitpicky as all heck here, and I know some people are probably going to be annoyed with me, but I'm sorry. There were just some scenes where I was like, he should have been walking on his knuckles. He's not in an aggressive posture right now. And also, again, nitpicking. I know, I'm nitpicking, I know. There's at least one scene, there's one scene where they do have Kong do the whole aggressive beating on chest. You see what I'm doing? See what these are right here? You know what these are called? These are called fists. And that's what gorillas do. They beat on their chest to be like, get away from me or I'm going to kick your butt, kind of a deal. Sorry, my shirt's very loose today for some reason. When this Kong beat his chest, it was very obvious that he would beat his chest. The palms would be flat. It would be like boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, what? Because what they were doing was they had the guy in the suit. The arms were longer, so he'd have a stick in his hand to go boom, 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 boom. I mean, I realize that's a major nit, and I know some people are probably like, you're being silly about this, and maybe I am. It was just one of those things that even as a little girl, I remember being like, that doesn't look right. But, they also made King Kong, it's weird because when they made King Kong Escapes, which was also tied in with an anime called The King Kong Show, which had Kong being friends with a young boy. I was like, I remember actually watching that. They had it on in syndication when I was younger. I remember seeing it and being like, this is weird. It was really weird because I believe it was done by the Ruby Spears company, the people that usually do did like all the claymation, holiday specials and stuff. But again, I was kind of like, okay, so he's a big gorilla, which is fine and everything like that, but I know he's not supposed to look like Kong, but could you kind of make him look more like a gorilla and less like somebody ran by a room with a gorilla picture in it and went, okay, this will work with that. I mean, never mind that the fact that the main villain in the film is named Doctor Who. So my guy sits there and goes, ooh, ooh, every time he comes on screen, and I'm like, now I realize what it's like to be with a wise ass like me. Although it's actually kind of cute when he does it. He's very cute. One more example I want to bring up of having the material and then adapting it and going, what the actual heck, is when people adapt comic books. Now, when you adapt a piece of fiction, a written piece of fiction, a book or something like that, you have to go by the description that you get from the author, how much the description or how little. And that can influence how you know, if you have someone that writes a book that mentions that, you know, this woman is tall and slender and has blonde hair, and that's all you get, you know, then you have kind of an idea of what you can do with. If the author goes on for a paragraph and a half about what the woman looks like or whatever, you know, then you have a little more detail. Okay, you know, that works out too. Either way works. However you write is however you write. And as long as you're happy with it, Terrence and I heartily approve. The thing is, it's a little different when it comes to comic books, because when you have a comic book, usually, not always, once the character has been established, they don't change all that much. I mean, yes, we have reboots and, you know, Crisis on this and 0 Hour that and blah, 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 and all that stuff like that. And sometimes, you know, something about a costume will change a little bit or whatever or what have you, but usually not enough that people would be completely lost about who the character is, if you get what I mean. And that even happens if you completely have a different artist, because every artist has their own style. But, you know, whoever draws Spider-Man is going to draw Spider-Man in his little Spidey suit, you know. And if it's Tom Holland, he just looks so adorable. Sorry. He's just so cute. Which brings us to one of my favorite comic characters, and she's been one of my favorite comic characters pretty much all my life. Wonder Woman. Princess Diana of Themyscira, however else you want to put her name. And she's been through a lot of, you know, ups and downs, and, you know, her origin stories changed from here, there, and everywhere and stuff like that. And we're not even going to get into some of the other stuff because I'm just not going to do that. But there was a point where a lot of people, a lot of younger folks, not going to slam, and I'm not age slamming on anybody, because if you don't remember this, you don't remember this. There was a point in the comics for a number of years that Wonder Woman gave up her powers. She stopped being an Amazon. I would have thought that meant she would age, but apparently I'm wrong. And she gave up her Amazonian powers and all of her, you know, Amazonian trappings and weaponry and all that stuff, and the transparent jet, because I'm not calling it invisible jet because that's stupid. It's not invisible, it's transparent. And she was basically the Emma Peel version of Wonder Woman. That's what we call her around our house, because she would fight with her hands and her feet and do all that stuff like that. But she was more realistic, I guess, is what we're going for. And then finally enough, people went, F this, we want our Wonder Woman back. We want the magic back. And DC went, oh, I think we screwed up. And they brought it back, and everybody was happy. But that didn't stop the television industry from going, we might be able to make some money out of this. And that gave us Wonder Woman. No, not the series with Linda Carter, which was great. The first season was better. Sorry. But the stuff set in World War II, it was better. Just my opinion, for what it's worth. No. This was a TV movie. I believe it ran on ABC. And Wonder Woman was played by Kathy Lee Crosby. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there who are around my age. Hello. And remember Kathy Lee Crosby from her stint on That's Incredible as one of the hosts. That's where I knew her from. I apparently she was also a tennis player, which is something that TC told me about. And she did some other acting work and stuff like that. I was like, I heard about this film before I saw it. And the first thing I thought of was, man, it's going to be weird seeing her with dark hair. Nope. When I watched the film, I was like, she's blonde. Why is she blonde? Why is Wonder Woman blonde? I'm sorry, I had the blue screen of death come down over my face. I'm like, what the frig? I mean, now I kind of understand what all those people, y'all remember when Casino Royale was coming out and people lost their flippin' minds about the fact that Daniel Craig was going to be playing James Bond because he had blonde hair. And people were like, oh, blonde James Bond, panic, 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 you know. And the press was calling him James Blonde and all this stuff like that. And I'm sorry, that one scene where he's coming up out of the water in that bathing suit, I wanted to find out if blondes had more fun. Wow. And also he was great as James Bond. Hey, Daniel. But I was just kind of like, why is she blonde? This is just no, this doesn't look right at all. And also her outfit was it was this skirt and leggings and it was wrong. It was just wrongity, wrong. There's just no other way to put it. Hi, Adam Savage. And the movie was terrible. And I'm not saying that because of the costume entirely. She's not Wonder Woman in this. If they had just called it, Spy Lady or something like that, I would have been fine with Diana Prince, International Woman of Mystery or whatever, but she's not friggin' Wonder Woman. Oh my gosh, this movie made me crazy. I mean, it was just completely like, what the F are they doing? This is so intensely, stupidly wrong. Besides the fact that all the scenes that they had from Paradise Island, or Themyscira if you want to be more technical, they were trying for some kind of ethereal, that whole thing where they'll put a piece of gauze or a piece of something over the film so that everything has kind of an out of focus ethereal kind of a thing. Apparently they ran out of gauze, so they just put Vaseline on the lens, because I'm like, why is it like this? This is the film, right? There's not something wrong with my eyes. This movie is one of the most ridiculous examples of how not to do a superhero movie. It's ridiculous. And then we got the later version of Wonder Woman that they tried to bring to TV with Adrienne Palicki as Wonder Woman. Now, I am not going to slam on Adrienne Palicki because she's a lovely person and a member of the Supernatural family and a great actress. She was great on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But what the F? I was like, what do you mean she runs a company? Why is she wearing pants? What is going on? Why is she killing people? I mean, that was the thing that I was like, what the? I mean, I'm like, Wonder Woman didn't kill people back in the 40s, and those were Nazis. Those were people you'd think people would be like, yeah, knock them off. But I'm like, what the? No. I mean, I watched one episode and I was like, I don't think I even could even sit through the whole thing. I was like, nope. Hashtag not my Wonder Woman. I'm out. So, do you guys have any characters that you think, from books or or comic books or whatever, that when they came to the big screen or the small screen, do you feel like, yes, they so got this right, or did they even look at the source material? Are there any characters that you feel they got completely right or completely wrong? I love to know. PlatinumRoselle@yahoo.com. If you have any other questions, queries, complaints, money, Daniel Craig's phone number. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Terrence says stalking is bad. Please let us know here at our little old channel, our little island of misfit toys, as I like to call it. And please click on the like and subscribe. And please tell other people about all of the other wonderful things that we have on our channel, most of which are the things that are put up by my Puddin' TC, who is the brains behind all of this, because goodness knows it's not me. He's got all kinds of cool shows about music and vinyl. He's got some really great things that are up now, including Friday Night Hair Salon, which is metal. It's glam metal, hard rock, all the kinds of stuff that made me the well-adjusted individual I am today. So for another week here on Kim Takes On, I am Kim, and this is Terrence the Wonder Duck. And we're hoping that you have a great week out there. Keep safe. Call the ones you love. Tell them you love them. And keep on rocking.